Ho, 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 motherfuckers! I'm just messing with you. What's up, guys and gals? It's your Mythic Tyrant here, and welcome back to my weekly Q&A session where you guys ask the questions and I give you the answers. We are now neck deep in the holiday season so far. I hope everyone's having a great time. Just to let you know, the Mythic Tyrant store is having a sale right now, so definitely head over there and check it out. I've heard a lot of good things about the mice and the keyboard, so definitely look at them. There are a lot of cool things to find there, and I hope you find something interesting for you too. And speaking of checking things out, your eyes do not beseech you. Even though this is called the weekly Halo Q&A, I am in fact playing Cuphead this time around. I have been on a Cuphead binge ever since I bought the game earlier this week. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Yes, it is a very difficult game to be sure, but it's also a fair one. And so I hope you guys are enjoying watching me play it as much as I'm having fun playing it. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. For those of you who would like to submit a question for a future Q&A, there are three ways you can do it. The first way is in the comment section below. The second way is hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. And the third way is if you're already a patron donating through my Patreon website, go ahead. We have a separate little chapter in there, a special Q&A section where you can ask your questions there as well. So let's go ahead and dive into it. My first question this week is a bit of a unique one because it wasn't submitted as a Q&A question. It was actually submitted as an inflammatory remark on one of my previous videos this week, but it's not the first time I've heard it. Now, usually when someone makes an inflammatory remark on one of my videos, I usually delete it. If they're persistent about it, I'll ban them from the site, but usually on the first offense, I just go ahead and just delete the comment. And I'm not in the business of slandering people, or at least I try not to be. And as far as I know, I'm pretty good at not doing it. So for the sake of anonymity, I decided to name this person Anonymous. And to sum up the question in one sentence, it was, what happened to this channel? So I'm not really sure what he meant by it. The first response, the knee-jerk response I had was, well, yeah, this channel has changed quite a bit since I first started up. The videos are a lot higher quality in both visual and audio. I post a lot more often than I used to, posting a video nearly every single day. I've started doing live streams. I've started playing new and different games in addition to Halo, and I've started doing weekly Q&As so I can better engage with my awesome community. But I'm assuming here that his comments are directed in terms of how many Halo videos I put up. And I want to make a couple of things clear for those who've been wondering why I don't produce more Halo content recently, which I do still produce quite a bit of Halo content, but I've started branching out. And the short end of it is, there's really not a lot going on right now in terms of Halo, and pretty much most of my colleagues who run their own YouTube channels have confirmed this as well. Even Hidden Xperia, someone who's an expert at Halo lore, is quote-unquote burned out by Halo. To give you a little bit more context, did I used to post more Halo content? Absolutely. To give you a little bit of insight, though, I started this channel in 2010. I started writing guides about 2 years before that for the HBO website. And in 2010, I'd already written Mythic difficulty guides for Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo Reach. When I started my YouTube channel, I decided to do legendary walkthroughs because people found Mythic to be so intimidating. I figured I would show everyone how to beat every Halo game on legendary without dying at all. And so to that end, I started with Halo Reach because that was the game at the time that was out. That was the latest Halo game. So I did a legendary walkthrough for Halo Reach. But here's the thing. I had a backlog of 5 Halo games, with Halo Reach being the first, because again, this was the dawn of my YouTube channel. I hadn't done legendary walkthroughs for the other Halo games. So I started with Reach and I worked my way backwards. I did Halo 3 ODST next, then Halo 3. I did Halo Combat Evolved next because I really didn't want to do a legendary walkthrough for Halo 2. And finally, I got so many requests for it that I just finally decided to bite my tongue and do it. And so I did. And by that time, it was late 2012. When I finished my Halo 2 Legendary walkthrough, and Halo 4 came out. So I gave Halo 4 the same treatment, you know, shoot, what do you call it? The combo treatment, the max, the works. There you go, that's what I was looking for, the works. So I gave it a full campaign of cutscenes video. I did a Legendary walkthrough for it. I did a Mythic difficulty walkthrough for it and also a Laser Challenge walkthrough. So I gave it the full treatment right there, and then when I was done with that, it was 2013. There really wasn't a lot for me to do, so I started doing Halo Spartan Ops. And people really didn't take to that, despite me working with other Halo community guys like Naked Eli and Green Skull and RC Master. So I, kind of put that on the shelf and, sort of moved on. I was like, okay, what to do next? So I hadn't done a Legendary walkthrough for Halo Wars. I'd never intended to because I wasn't really a huge fan of the game. It's a fine game, don't get me wrong, but as someone who loves RTS games, Halo Wars really just didn't match up with other, large titles out there like Command and Conquer and Age of Empires and StarCraft. So, I decided to do it anyway, and when I was done with that, I wasn't really sure what to do from there. So, I went back, I looked, and, Halo Spartan Assault had been out at that point, but it looked like sort of a cash grab Halo game, just a little mobile app, so I really didn't pay much attention to it. Finally, the Master Chief Collection came out, and I did a full campaign and cutscenes video for Halo 2 Anniversary, but I'd already done walkthroughs, for Legendary for all the other ones there, and Mythic for at least 3 of the games, so I didn't really see a lot of point in doing any walkthroughs for the Master Chief Collection. So again, it was just kind of stagnant for a while, and at that point in time I really wasn't concentrating much on my channel anyway, if you go back and look. So finally, after my accident in 2015, I started revisiting my site more. Again, there wasn't a lot of content out there, so I started playing other games like Portal and Splatterhouse, Box Adventure, Super Mario Brothers, and waiting for Halo 5. Halo 5 comes out, and I start doing Legendary walkthroughs for that. People seem underwhelmed, I guess in part because Halo 5 had a terrible story and a bare bones release, so it just wasn't a very popular Halo game, especially when it first came out. So, I did my Legendary walkthrough for that. People complained that it took me too long, so when Halo Wars 2 came out, at that point, I put it into full gear, full throttle, and I released the full walkthrough within 2 weeks of the game being released, which is the fastest I've ever done any Halo walkthrough ever, and still not many people watched it, so it seemed like the Halo theme really started dying down community-wide. Just people weren't as excited as they used to be, so I started expanding my site into other things, not just in other games, but I started doing dino fights recently. I've started doing more reviews and just trying to incorporate other games into the site so that we have some time here, because again, there's just not a lot out there. I didn't even find out about Halo Spartan Strike until like right after I finished playing Spartan Assault. I was like, oh, that happened. And I've been working on something for that. I'm currently working on the Halo 5 Mythic difficulty walkthrough, but it's sort of a lull period for Halo until we get our first information regarding Halo 6. So for those of you out there watching, I certainly hope that you still think that this site is at your standards. I'm certainly trying to keep it at high standards. I don't want to disappoint everybody or anybody, but it's also about branching out and trying new things, especially since we don't know what the future of Halo is going to hold. It hasn't looked great, in the last couple of years, so I don't know where it's going to lead in the future. And so I'm expanding on my ideas to try to make sure that I can keep going even if Halo doesn't. So I hope that answers questions. Again, when it comes to inflammatory remarks, I don't like them. I do respect criticism as long as it's constructive. So, just keep that in mind going forward. But again, I really don't feel like I need to address this with you guys because, especially my Q&A folks, you're wonderful people, and I am very grateful to have each and every one of you here. So thank you. Our next question comes from Luke Skywalker II. And Luke asks, for next week, do you think that there should be a Halo 7 or should the Reclaimer Saga end with just Halo 6? Yes, it should end with just Halo 6. Part of it's because, obviously, it looks like, as of right now, Halo 6 is going to break the 3-year cycle. It doesn't look like it's going to be released prior to 2019, which means it's a 4-year gap, and Halo 5 already ended on a cliffhanger. It didn't help that Halo Wars 2, despite it being a pretty decent game, also ended on a cliffhanger, and then did it again with Awakening of the Nightmare. I think if they take the next Halo game and end it on another cliffhanger, again, that they're going to lose a lot of respect from Halo fans if they haven't already. And it would be pretty much a damning move for the franchise. So I think for the sake of the Halo franchise, stop the Reclaimer Saga at Halo 6. At that point, we'll already have 7 major Halo titles anyway if you include Reach. So stop it there and then just work backwards from that point. That's what I think, Luke. So thank you for asking that, my friend. Our next question comes from Halick. And Halick asks, do you think modern gamers would be able to adapt to the Halo gameplay of CE through Halo 3, or would they turn away from that and look for enhanced mobility in their games such as wall climbing and sprinting? This is a really good question, and I sort of touched on this when I was talking about classic versus modern Halo gameplay. The problem with the classic style, and I can tell you this from having gone back this year and played all the original Halo games, is once you've moved forward, it's really difficult to move backwards. You know, when I was playing Combat Evolved, one of my favorite games of all time, hands down, there were several situations that I found myself in where I would instinctively try to sprint away only to realize that I didn't have it, and I was like, shit, it's been this long since I played Halo Combat Evolved that I completely forgot. And so when you have that enhanced mobility and the ability to do a lot more on the battlefield, when you have all that taken away from you, it feels kind of awkward. I think that if you're someone who grew up with the Halo games and you've played them in order, it's fine. But if you're someone who's just coming into the Halo franchise with Halo 4 or Halo 5, it might be more difficult to go back to those vintage games, even if, you know, in my opinion, they have better stories and overall better gameplay. Again, I think, you know, I respect the folks who really, you know, enjoy that vintage gameplay, but at the same time, it's really difficult to move backwards. So I would think if you were to do that, the best game to go, or game to start with, would be Halo 3. But aside from that, I don't see why they couldn't enjoy it. It would just be a massive adjustment. So I hope that answers your question, my friend, and thank you. Our next question comes from Puneet Kumar. And Puneet asks, before asking the question, thanks a lot, Tyrant, for all your Halo walkthroughs. They are the best walkthroughs ever because they are not speedruns where you need that one lucky chance to succeed. You always tell us those tips and tricks which have a 100% success rate and can be used again and again, and your new intro is awesome. Now here's the question, Mythic Tyrant. What do you think about Buck as a replacement of Chief rather than Locke, especially since he's a Spartan now? First of all, thank you for the nice words, my friend. I certainly do appreciate that. In terms of Buck replacing Locke, I wouldn't have an issue with that at all. I prefer Buck as a character. Here's what I kind of, I've been thinking about. And when I look at Halo 5, I wonder if there was a lot of PR involved in that casting, because if you look at both Blue Team and Fire Team Osiris, there's a huge diversity in both teams. You have 2 men, 2 women, you have different cultural backgrounds, and I kind of wonder if, you know, the ultra political community would step forward and say, oh, so you replaced Locke with Buck, that's racist. Hopefully they wouldn't think that, but I do think it would be kind of sort of walking on thin ice if they did. Not to mention, they went to all the trouble to make him a main character in Halo 5, so I think they're going to want to flesh him out more. I'd actually like to see Locke fleshed out more. I want them to make me care about Locke as a character, not as the hollow shell that he was in Halo 5. So I hope they can pull that off with Halo 6. At the same time, I hope Buck is also a central character in that game. So I hope that answers your question, Puneet. And again, thank you for your kind remarks. Our next question comes from Claude Assassin. And Claude asks, so, modified Utah Raptor versus Master Chief to where both are equal. Also, remind me to continue that campaign invasion question because I want to expand on that. So, Utah Raptor. So, we have our first Dino Q&A here. All right, that's cool. By the way, side note, if you guys would actually like to see me do a separate Q&A for dinosaurs, let me know and I can do that too. I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I just want to see the Dino Fight series take off a little more. We've had 2 videos do really well in that area, so you never know. But if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments below. And to answer your question, if I say anything other than Master Chief, I'm going to be crucified by the community. So I'll say the Master Chief on this one, but he definitely would have a tough fight on his hands. I love my Utah Raptor. What can I say? Biggest raptor ever discovered. Real deal right there. So that's a great question, Claude, and thank you for asking the dinosaur question. Our next question comes from DB2 Guide, and DB2 asks, For Halo 6, do you think that Osiris and Blue Team will have to explore a Halo ring to seek technology to fight Cortana? You never know. I mean, they had a Halo ring for the legendary ending of Halo 5 Guardians, although because they've already stated that Halo Wars 2 is going to be intertwined with Halo 6 or meet up with the franchise that way, I'm more inclined to think that if they find something to beat Cortana, it's going to be on the Ark. That would make the most sense to me. I see that as also being a way for the Spirit of Fire to get off the Ark and for the Banished to maybe be defeated completely once the UNSC really gets involved full force. So that's a really cool question, DB2 Guide, and I hope I answered it for you. Our next question comes from Garv Virgin Car. And Garv asks, Q&A, what do you think about the Banished acquiring a spacefaring ship or maybe even sail Nion's Covenant, as they have 2 CAS-class ships under them and are a major threat? I don't really see that as being a major plot point in upcoming Halo games, unless they are planning on releasing another expansion. I see, if anything, more than likely Halo 6 tying into Halo Wars 2, and possible Covenant reinforcements from the Storm Covenant, maybe, I don't know, or somehow hijacking a UNSC ship, but that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, Garb. But that's a great question, thank you. Our next question comes from my boy Arcos Trevelyan. Of course, on the Discord he goes by Arcos, so that's what I'm putting up here. And Arcos asks, question for your next Q&A, if you will. Do you think it would be a fun idea to have a D-Day-like invasion in Halo 6's final act, perhaps as a distraction to get Chief to Cortana? When I first saw this question, my answer was no. It's 2558 or something like that. They would never need that type of trench warfare at that point in time when they have spaceships, but the more I pondered on it, I was like, well, actually, technically, the Guardians knocked out a lot of spaceships, so they might not have a choice in the matter. It's possible, but I see that being a really tough mission, considering they'd be fighting an endless legion of Prometheans, and possibly the Flood, so who knows with that one. It would be an interesting scenario. It would be a different, I guess, take on Halo. I don't know how well it would go over with the fans, but people keep saying they want bigger battles, so you never know. Possibly, Arco, so that's a great question. Thank you. Our next question comes from CFunk99. Always good to hear from you, CFunk. And CFunk asks, for this week's Q&A, Tyrant, what are your thoughts on Disney buying Fox and having X-Men, Deadpool, and the Fantastic Four join the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Honestly, first of all, it doesn't surprise me. Disney owns everything at this point. They bought out Maker Studio a few years ago, only for it to go bankrupt a couple of years later. They purchased Lucasfilms. Funny thing is, I actually enjoyed Episode 7. Definitely a lot more than any of the prequels. In terms of Rogue One, it was okay. I got no real complaints against it. I have not seen the new one yet, though. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. It was the first time that my favorite YouTube reviewer, Jeremy Johns, did not give a Star Wars film an awesome-tacular rating. He gave it a good time, no alcohol required, which is basically the equivalent of a B. And it's my equivalent of it's better to buy on sale. So I was like, wow, okay, that's a first for him. So I'm planning on seeing it probably maybe next weekend. So I don't really know, but it certainly will be interesting. Now, in terms of everything else, they already said Deadpool's still going to be rated R for the second one. X-Men, it's kind of tired at this point. I really don't want to see any more X-Men movies. I feel like X-Men Apocalypse should have been the last one. There's already like 6 of them, so I wouldn't be heartbroken if they just stopped using X-Men except for cameos in Deadpool movies. And as far as the Fantastic Four goes, I have yet to see a decent Fantastic Four film. I take that back. The first one was okay. Second one was trash, and so was the remake. So that's my opinion on that. I do find it funny, though, that the only portion of Fox they did not buy was Fox News. That was probably a good move on their part. So that's my thoughts. I'm not... my hope is that, they can do right by it, and if they don't, I guess we're going to find out, but hopefully they don't do a true takeover until after Infinity War and Infinity War Part 2 have come out. So that's a great question, CFunk99. Always good to hear from you. And our star question of the week this week comes from my friend Chris Wood. Everyone give Chris Wood a hand here. So first of all, he was the first patron donor to donate to my Patreon page, and right now he's the current high donor on there. So thank you so much, Chris, for all your help. Thank you for buying stuff from my store and just being very supportive in general of everything I do. So thank you very much, my friend. And then Chris's question is, hey, MT, watched a video yesterday where a YouTuber addressed the comments of some pro players who think casual players should stay out of the conversation about what future Halo games should be like. What are your thoughts? I think that he's talking about a video that I've also seen, and he's referring to a comment that was made by T Squared, who is a quote-unquote professional gamer. And I'm going to start by saying, to hear T Squared say that on Twitter was very disappointing. Before I became MythicTyrant, you know, T Squared was someone I looked up to. I enjoyed watching him play MLG. You know, I always rooted for him in the tournaments. And hearing him say that was just kind of like, okay, someone needs to get off their high horse because someone has gotten too big for their britches. You know, I'll say that as the founder of the Mythic community, I've always felt that 343 should query us about tips for campaign for future Halo games. And it stands to reason because, you know, my community knows the campaigns better than the backs of our hands, except for my right hand with the glove. I have no idea what that rotted piece of shit looks like now. But to go into it, I felt like that should be the case simply because we know the game so well. And even back as early as 2011, we petitioned to have the blind skull either removed or altered from the game just because it took away the immersion of the gameplay. I even teamed up with other community members or community leaders like Green Skull and Naked Eli and Louis Wu from HBO to try to get this message across. And you know, we pounded it in there for years, and Halo 5 came out and they had done nothing about it. So they didn't listen to us. Now, to that end though, I never thought that we should be the definitive or the go-to for campaign, that only our opinions matter, because that's not true. The Halo community is vast, and we all appreciate different things about it. And so when I see T Squared making these remarks, my first inquiry is, you don't own the Halo community. 343 already pings those folks on tips for multiplayer, but they're not going to take those tips verbatim because, I hate to say it, actually I don't hate to say it, most of the community is made up of casual players. You know, I consider myself a casual player. People keep thinking that I'm an expert. I'm not. I have no skill. And people who have actually played the game with me know that. It's not that I'm skilled at Halo. I'm actually terrible at it, but I'm very good at reverse engineering it. I know how to study each mission very, very much in detail to the point where I can predict almost any scenario or situation that'll happen. And that's how I'm able to make the guides I do, because I'm not a pro. I make the guides I do so that anyone, no matter what their skill level is, can do it. And I love the casual community. The casual community is a fun community. And this sort of goes back to the question we had a couple of weeks ago about classic versus modern Halo. And, you know, my opinions on that, and I think people took to me saying that, you know, I love the new mechanics is to shunning the people who prefer the legacy mechanics. And the answer to that is no, not at all. It's just that I know that 343 is trying to keep up with the rest of the FPS franchises out there, and that's why you see the changes that you see. To that end, I also believe that to cater to those legacy fans, they should also have a legacy playlist by default at game launch in the Halo multiplayer. That way, you know, people who love that old style gameplay can still utilize it. And I believe the same should be held for the pros as well. For people who love hardcore competitive gaming, fine, let's give them a playlist. I think that would be a good idea. They are a major community, but they don't own Halo. I don't own Halo. The community as a collective owns Halo, and everyone loves Halo, each game for different reasons, or hates some games for different reasons. And that's sort of what we need to remember. You know, no one's opinion is more important than somebody else's when it comes to this stuff. I feel like some people have more informed opinions than others, but there are some people who think they just own the franchise because maybe they're more recognized in the community. And that's just not true. And I think people tend to abuse that power. I hope that I don't do that. I certainly try not to. I can certainly understand if people think that I do. I really don't try to do that. You know, I like to think that everyone's opinion in Halo matters, even if it's one that contradicts my own. And so the community owns Halo, not just one niche group like the MLG pros. I think what they do is really cool, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean they need to have the whole game catered to them. I can't play on their level, plain and simple. And I don't expect most of my community to play on their level, plain and simple. It's fun to watch them, but would you really want to exclude most of the community from playing the game just to tailor to your specific needs? What's the fun in that? And the same applies to my specific needs for Halo. I don't believe that 343 needs to look at me as the definitive answer for all of Halo's campaign, nor my community. Take suggestions from everybody. Someone might suggest something that I've never even thought of before, and which could be an idea far superior than my own. And so I think 343 needs to be very close with the community in general and be able to sort through this feedback and weed out the bullshit and look at the stuff that's constructive that might actually help the franchise going forward. To me, it sounds like T squared is just on a power trip. And that's a very dangerous place to be. When you're somewhat of influence, you need to try to be a positive influence, not a negative one. All he is doing right now is serving to divide the Halo community. We do not need that right now. We're already divided enough as it is. That type of inflammatory commentary does not help. Plain and simple. I think he needs to retract that statement. I think he needs to say something to maybe calm the waters a little bit, because there has been a major backlash as a result of that comment. And so now we have yet another civil war between Halo community members, and we don't want that. There's enough of that going on as is. Don't feed the fire. You're supposed to be someone that people look up to when it comes to Halo, not a figure of divisiveness. And so, again, he's someone that I looked up to, and it's disappointing to see him take such a divisive tone. I hope he's able to change his attitude. I hope that we can all work together to forge a better future for Halo. And so, once again, Chris, that was an excellent question. I really appreciate you bringing that up. I hope that explains my point of view. And I would like to hear from you guys, what you think about it. Do you side with my perspective? Do you side with the pros? Do you side with the casuals? What's your particular gameplay style, and what do you think should be forged going forward in the future for Halo? You can let me know in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. A link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below. And of course, if you want to help this site out, we're going through some tough times right now. I'm hoping that we can get this site through 2018 and beyond. Take a look at my Patreon page. If you can donate as little as $1 a month, it would help me out so much, and I'd really appreciate it. And of course, we also have our MythicTyrant store where you can buy lots of cool stuff for yourself, or your friends, or your loved ones. So definitely give that a check out too. I think you're going to find something there that you're going to like. And if you like this video and you want to see more and you want to stay up to date on all your Halo news, tips, tricks, and secrets, don't forget to click that subscribe button for more great content every single day right here on MythicTyrant.com. And while you're at it, go ahead and click that notification icon as well, so you'll know as soon as a video goes up. And you can be the first to see it and the first to comment. I hope everyone has a very happy and safe holiday. I thank you guys and gals so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, wonderful holiday. I will catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.